Looks like we're going to United.
That's right. Yep. Thank you.
Cell phone charger back there if you need one.
I see. Thanks.
Going somewhere for work or for fun?
For work, actually.
Work, yeah. A lot of the Monday travelers, that's usually how they go.
Yeah. I usually try to go out Monday evening, but I've got meetings in the mornings.
I know how it can be. Where are you headed to?
Boston.
Boston. Oh, okay. That's not too bad. Like hour flight, something like that, right?
Yeah, like hour and a half or so.
Yeah,
It's not too bad.
Not too bad. Such a nice day today. You know how the weather is in Boston?
It's gonna be a little cooler, so yeah, I'm disappointed that I'm missing half a lovely day here.
Yeah. Yeah, I live right, I want to say about 4 blocks north of you. I'm right by Granville
okay,
Stop.
nice.
And it was just so hard to not just go to the beach today. Like, it's just so nice. And I love this part of Chicago. You don't realize you're in the city at all. It's just so quiet. The beach is so nice. The lakefront is just great.
Yeah, definitely feels like more of a neighborhood vibe.
Yeah, I was in Andersonville for like 4 years, and then I bought a house here in Edgewater, and I was like, oh, it's just so nice. Like, you don't know, like everybody complains about Chicago. There's traffic, there's tons of people, there's blah blah blah. But it's like, not where I'm at. Not where I'm at.
Yeah, I've lived in this neighborhood or this area for, like, gosh, probably 20 years or so.
Oh,
like
wow,
Edgewater
nice.
and
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've looked around other parts of the city, but I feel like I'd also really miss being close to the lake. Like,
Yeah.
if I went somewhere else.
Yeah, and right where you are, you can go to basically all 3 of the beaches that are right there. You can come down to Bryn Mawr, you can go to Glen Lake, you can go to, yeah, it's nice. What type of work do you do?
I work in, like, design consulting.
Oh, okay.
So, like, user experience, digital kind of stuff.
Sure, UX, so like, okay, this is what how the app's going to work and what they're going to get into, or website or application or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. I'm a cloud infrastructure engineer when I'm not doing this.
Oh, nice. Okay, so yeah,
Very
you
nerd.
can relate.
Yeah. This is how I talk to people because I work from home. I've been remote since 2017, so.
Oh, what's up?
Yeah.
She's going for it.
All right, go for it. Here we go. So that's cool. Do you like the UX design part of programming and development?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing design throughout my career. So I started actually right during like the Dotcom phase. So like I was technically a web designer at the time. So I was doing the visual and the some of the programming.
Boom. Yeah, Web 2.0.
But
yeah.
my background is more in like visual communication and design. So I ended up specializing a bit more in like the visual and then user experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worked out pretty well. I'm fortunate in some ways to have started my career when I did and got on a good path.
Yeah, that's very true. That was right when nobody knew anything about it but knew they needed it. So you just cut your own price. You're like, is this, web page is going to cost about $1,200 in 1996.
Yeah, I mean, well, just seeing the transition of like the big major shifts of like just getting web period and then mobile coming along and then obviously everything's happening with AI. It's like there's a whole other big shift.
Yeah, it's definitely on the programming side. It's definitely getting into. It's not like you can do all the programming without a person, but you can do a big chunk of it to just say, here, give me something that'll do this, and then you can go through it and turn it into something much more usable.
Are you using like some of those techniques today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the infrastructure as code, you're just like, here, let me create a Git. Let me see if I can deploy 18 virtual machines in one specific group. Okay, cool, and it'll just put it together. I could go through and find all that, but if you just give it the info, it'll just do it for you. And it's just that little bit faster of like, okay, cool, less work, lunch earlier. I'll take it. Take it. But I like UX, I like UI because it's the psychology of what it is we're doing. I got into IT because I like to help people understand the technology they're working in, and I feel like that's what you're doing. The user experience, the interface, that design is how they're actually interacting with that technology. And so you can kind of hands-on cater to that and say, okay, here's what makes the most sense.
Yeah.
And what looks nice.
Exactly. So much of it is actually, I'd say even a big part of the work is doing like user research and within the specific problem space, whatever we're designing, like understanding what the user needs are and then being able to translate that into the experience and
exactly.
and like that iterative approach also helps with adoption. Like people, if they're, I mean, literally one of the projects I'm working on right now is very similar. Like we just conducted stakeholder interviews with all the end users who are using this new platform, and now setting up the designs to reflect what they need basically. And
Sure.
so it's like that balance of, to your earlier point about using technology to accelerate, it's like the balance of kind of customization where you need to and where it makes sense, but then accelerating other things that are like common patterns that you don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it's good that, essentially applications and software and all of that has now become part of the zeitgeist for people for the last, I'm going to say 30 years, right?
Yeah.
So people kind of understand it a little better. They're a little more genned in, whereas like before you needed it to be very, very bland, very plain, very like text heavy,
Yeah.
And now you could add a little more flair to it, and people can assume, and they go, oh yeah, I know file menu's going to have this, edit's going to have that. I can, kind of play with it a little more, especially with younger generations. They grew up with this stuff,
Exactly.
so they really get it. They don't need as much hand holding, which can be nice. So you're from Chicago originally?
Yeah, I grew up, I grew up south of the city, in Kankakee, which is about 60 miles south.
Mm-hmm.
And I've lived in the city since basically went to school there, and then started my career, and here I am.
Oh, that's great. You grew with the city then, that's great, yeah.
Which is maybe why I'm okay with some of the consulting work where I'm traveling and seeing other places.
Yeah, that makes
Spend some time in other contexts.
Exactly. And that's what I love about tech, is that you really can. I was talking to a programmer from Czechoslovakia, and he's like, yeah, you should do, Chicago every like 3 months, and then hang out for a week, and then go back to Czech.
Nice.
And I'm just like, oh, dude, that's awesome. And he's like, the company pays for everything. I'm like, oh man. And that's like one of the great jobs to have if you're in Czechoslovakia, because it's great salary, great hours, plus the perks of travel and all that stuff. Get to travel outside of work? Do you get to go out and visit? Do you like to go?
Oh yeah. We try to do a big trip every year. Last year we went to Greece. We were in Crete for a week, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I've never been before, and we've spent a lot of time in Europe, and I actually did some research projects in Asia, which was probably the furthest. I spent some time in China. I was in a few cities there. This was about 10 years ago, so different economic and sort of different less tensions, I guess, between the U.S. and China at the time. But
yeah, and I feel like there's government people, like I always say, because you talk to people that live in Chicago, right? They're like, oh, you need a bulletproof vest before you get off the airplane, right? But that's the news Chicago. Then there's the government of Chicago, and then there's the people of Chicago.
Yeah.
And I feel like China's the same way.
So true.
Yeah, like they have a dictatorship in the way that they have it, communist government regime. Okay, fine, but when you go there and you talk to somebody, they're not gonna have that. It's just gonna be a person. They're gonna have an interaction with you, and it's a completely different thing.
Yeah, I was actually chatting with our translator in China on this topic, and she was remarking that, like, because it's similar, like they look at the U.S. and are like, wow, this is like crazy. And she was saying, like, while we do have this sort of communist / dictator government, it's predictable. She's like, there's like you kind of know what you're in for, and you don't have these huge pendulum switch every 4 years, right? Or everything.
2 years for the Congress.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
So she's like, and then like there's like zero, almost zero gun fatalities, and crime is like not as almost unheard of. It's like, I guess, like crime from the people perspective, but like you could argue the government probably you could find some corruption and crime there, but
a lot of the people policies we consider those criminal, but okay.
Yeah.
Not illegal though, so I guess not a crime.
And as a citizen, it's sort of like, if your day to day is, relatively peaceful,
Yeah.
then I don't know. So it's having those different perspectives, I think, is something I really value about having traveled and seen different cultures and spent some time, and just it helps you form a broader perspective of the world, and for better or worse.
Exactly. I think you can kind of take it at ease, because like we see how crazy it is, but then we go over there and we see the other side of it, and then you come to the middle of, well, it turns out nobody actually knows what it is we're really doing.
Yeah, and then you can cut through some of the maybe not as far as propaganda, but or just like the BS around what people try to tell you the rest of the world is like. It's like, well, you've seen it firsthand, and at least you have at least a few more data points to
triangulate. The news in a movie will tell you one thing, but like I take Africa as an example. If you talk to most people in America that have only seen it on a TV show, it's huts, it's mud huts, it's a jungle, there's lions everywhere. But they've got, Zimbabwe, which is like one of the biggest cities on planet Earth. It's like 10 million people. It's a mega city. But you don't have that viewpoint. So it's like you have to go out there, you gotta mingle and see the people. And I was talking to someone, this is a bit lofty, but like, if you look at human existence, like we humans have existed on planet Earth for about I think it's 1.2 million years. Of that 1.2 million years of human evolution, cave people, tribal society, all that stuff, we've had society. Like China has about 4,500 years of records. That's it. That's society. Like before that, we didn't have it. We don't know what we're doing at all with any of it. At all.
That's a really good point. It's stepping back. It's all a big experiment, frankly.
It's all an experiment. And it's like before this, we were like murder on sight if they're not in your tribe. Like that's it. And we're just not that far evolutionarily from that, because human evolutions happen in the span of eons, 10,000, 20,000 years, not 4. We have no idea how to do society yet at all.
Well, and you bring up a really good point, and like in the context of technology, where we are our humanity is evolved at some level in our senses and how we look at the world and approach the world, and or in our physical bodies, how we respond to stress and all these things. We are technology has just added a whole new dimension of interference in some ways to some of our natural states. And I was reading something about how recently we were never really designed as a species to have so much awareness about all the things that are happening in the world simultaneously. What that does to you in terms of your stress and your ability to relate to it just it's
especially because the human brain sees the TV as real. It sees the screen as real. So like you said, if you're seeing this threat that's happening in another country that's not in any way affecting you in any way, you're stressed about it because these are real things that are happening.
And you don't really have a way to an outlet to kind of resolve it.
No, and at best, if we just rely on human evolution, it's going to be about 4,000 years before we're okay with that. We're just not. We have to adapt to it. But it's turned because it used to be you'd be in a village, you'd be in a town, you'd have 30 people, 100 people, right? That's, I think they say the max a person can remember is 140 humans, other people. So that's, now we're in cities like Chicago, 3 million people. You can't wrap your brain around that. Literally, we're just not designed for it. We can't do it. But you pay attention. You hear the South Side's this, you hear this, you hear that, and you're just like, oh gosh, I should be worried about it.
And it also, I think, kind of abstracts a little bit of your relationship to the world. Like you were saying, in your earlier evolution where you had 30 people in your tribe, or people you were kind of you cared about your community and what happens to your community and your surroundings and all the things that are related to your livelihood on a different level than I think we take for granted in our own modern world, with all of that complexity that's sort of thrown at us, and sort of lose touch with some of those basics that, really taking the time to have a healthy debate and question things, and especially things that are affecting your community. Whereas it's onto the next, swipe to the left, swipe to the right, up to the next headline, the next Instagram story, whatever, and
you're just reading the headline next. Okay, cool. I get
information fatigue kind of.
Oh yeah. And you said it yourself that with the community, like there's a lack of that level that we used to have of the like, here's my people. You know, that's to me, that's the thing I think we're lacking the most. We've expanded so far. We're not loving your neighbor. We're not looking at for the people around us. You know, I see Edgewater's really trying to create a community, trying to create a lot of that, which is really great. I'm very much a supporter of it. Cool. I like to meet my neighbors. I like to talk to people, and like, you know, my neighbor, I want to say it was winter, his pipe froze completely. Like, almost didn't bust, but it froze. He didn't have water, so I was like, come over, have your family come shower. Like, we're neighbors. Like, the next thing to family is this. So like, of course I'm gonna be here. And he was like, they brought over food. They're like, I don't know how we would have got over through this without you. Like, this was really helpful. I'm like, that's community. That's what we're supposed to be here for. But we're missing that because it's all through a screen. People aren't interacting with each other. And
you kind of where you sort of form your own communities
based
on belief structures that are one way or another. And like, I mean, not to get political, but like tuning into like a Fox News and just subscribing to or whatever the other alternative. Pick your flavor, but
right, God, Newsmax or who knows what. Yeah,
but just like letting that stream of BS, in my opinion, just continue to occupy your mind instead of like actually like walking down the street and being exposed to a different perspective from your neighbor who is just has a different lived experience.
Exactly. And that's, you know, and it's unfortunate because it's like, I think people don't really realize it's like all media is there to get a reaction out of you, to get eyes on the screen so that they can sell you pills. It's, you know, like the Fox News listeners are going to say, well, CNN, ABC, and MSNBC, that's what they're doing. But it's like, no, they're all doing that.
Yeah.
All of them. Newsmax is doing that. OAN is doing that. Independent news channels are doing that. They're all trying to get eyes on the screen to sell you something. That's the whole thing. You know, and it's like this is why it's like, well, how often do you hear a good story in the news? People don't react to that. They don't care about it. Doesn't get the eyes on the page. You know, we can't talk about all the, you know, news advancements. You're not going to see scientific advancements, how we're like curing diseases. Like there was a geneticist who found a way to, he's like we, with gene therapy, we can actually start curing diseases without even having to have an injection. Like people are going to start doing that. Sure, it's going to be 80 years, 90 years down the road, but it's like, that's a huge one.
Yeah.
I didn't see that in the news anywhere. That's impactful around the world because we're essentially figuring out how to cure disease. But
I sign up wherever I can, whenever I see a news outlet that's like, and it just felt like just this year. In fact, I've noticed a few. There's one on like Washington Post. They have a newsletter that's called The Optimist, and it's all just positive stories, more positive stories.
Yeah.
And there's another one that I saw called, I think, Future Crunch.
Ooh, okay.
Or something, which is a similar premise. It's like, let's just talk about like positive things that are happening, because there's so much negative that we're exposed to every day. Like, and to your point, these are also like stories about space exploration and things that are just like scientific breakthroughs that seem to be in the backseat of all the people's litigation, indictments and things.
Yeah, and all this stuff. And then, gosh, we're getting into the election cycle, so that's going to be even worse for us in American media. Yeah. But it's like there's just so much more out there that we're just not seeing. And we're not, you know, unfortunately, this is, I think, the funniest fact and the saddest fact in life is that you have to make the mistake to learn from it. All people are the same way, and that's with news. We have to make this mistake of like believing it and falling for it and giving it all of our time and attention in order to eventually adapt and go, oh, this isn't what we want to do. This isn't what we want to create. We have to do it better. And that's going to take a lot of mistakes, because that's just how humans evolve and learn. And that's just where we're at. All of society, all of that stuff, it has to go through all the mistakes in order to succeed. That's it. There's I'm a comedian, and I'm working on a bit where I talk about how the one key to success for all humans is overwhelming failure. We fail so much that failure is overwhelmed and quits. That's success. That's how we get roads. That's how we get the light bulb. That's how we get electricity. All of that. So the same thing has to happen with news media. It has to happen with society. We have to do it wrong first. That's how we work.
Yeah, and how it sort of fits into the broader forces for change,
Right.
forces for status quo, and
Mm-hmm.
like capitalist in some ways, like motivations that.
Yeah, because capitalism has existed as a theology for about 400 years, right? Compared to our 4,500 of all of society, we've had this. This is our version of it that's happening now. But if you take the 1,000-year, 3,000-year view and scooch it back, humanity has always been socialistic. Has always. That's the one thing that's why we succeed.
Yeah.
We all work together.
Again, going back to that community mindset of like one of the things that I feel actually sort of a little bit of a pit in my stomach when I'm out walking my dog in the lakefront and I'm just seeing more and more like tents popping up in the parks.
Yeah.
And it's like, how are we, with all of the taxes that we pay and all of the especially in Chicago. I mean, I love the city, but we are definitely taxed.
A lot of taxes.
We
Where's
pay
the money
more
go?
than our share.
Yes.
And it's like here we still have people who can't even, we can't even help people with like basic needs. Like,
right.
Like how is it right?
Right. I've often said, and this is where I'm like, I'm not political, but I really want to get into politics here because I truly believe Chicago could be a utopia. It truly could be. We have all the things we need for it. It's just structured in a way that's just so corrupt, and that's really what the problem is and has been. Because that's the other thing. I moved here from California, so I grew up out there. I've only been here about 5 years, and I've never seen a city so proud of its corruption. Only in Chicago, where people are like, yeah, we got the mob. They run everything. We're connected. They're connected. I'm connected. Like, it's like this is not how we're supposed to do things. It's not what you want. It's not a good thing, and that's why a lot of the problems are how we certainly pay a lot of taxes. I've worked for the local government here in Chicago doing IT, and I've learned you have to grease every palm to get anything done, and by the end of it, there's nothing left. That's how it's designed, and it's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I think we could get there. I would, like you said, we certainly pay enough for it. There's enough people. We have the structure. The design could be here. It could be really amazing.
Yeah, and I'm honestly like, people don't like to pay taxes, but I'm okay with paying taxes if it's helping broader society, and that's what it's supposed to do.
That's what they've been the whole time. That's the whole point of it. Is like one person can't pay for everything, so we all just pay a tiny little piece, and it's supposed to be there. But what's happening now is military contracts are absorbing 80% of the money that we're making. And one that other people don't know, I had this conversation with a former employer because she was very much a Fox News person. So this is why I quit actually, because I was having this conversation where she was like, why am I paying all this money for welfare and why am I paying for immigrants and blah, blah, all this stuff? And I was like, you do realize that you're paying for 40% of every gas tank on the road with your taxes, right? She's like, what do you mean? I was like, that's like $180 billion subsidy. That's why our gas is only $4 here, but in England it's like $8. Yeah. It's because it's paid for with tax money. That's the actual price it should be. And this every single gas tank, but nobody complains about that. If you were to do, and I took her, I was like, let's just do the math. How many people are on welfare in the United States? It's about 5 million. They get $6 a day, so that's about $30 million that's going to go all around, for the year. For a $750 billion budget, they're spending maybe $4 billion on welfare. So where's the other 742 billion? Are you even thinking about it?
Yeah.
Where's the rest of the money coming?
No,
right?
Totally. It's such a great example, like the gas.
Yeah.
And you could there's another example I was thinking of. I lost it. I'll think about it. But yeah, that whole idea of where. Oh yeah, Walmart was the one I was thinking about when you were mentioning welfare and food stamps and things like here's an organization where a good chunk of their own employees are using social services because they're not even making enough to get by, and it's and meanwhile Walmart and all these big corporates are getting tax breaks, and it's so you mean to tell me a for-profit company? Actually, Jon Stewart had a really good segment on, I think it was the Apple TV series called The Problem with Jon Stewart.
The problem. Yeah, that was a great one. He did a lot
and
of
those. He asked Jennifer, what's her name? Something Yellen. What's her name? Anyway, basically her role is like chief economy something or another.
Mm-hmm.
And he was asking her that question, and it was just it was interesting watching her kind of backpedal and try to like make sense of it, because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, make it make sense. Why are they getting 110 billion, but there are people here on welfare, so that everybody has to pay taxes to feed or give them health insurance, when this money would cover that and still have 50 billion left over? What's the reasoning behind that? And that's really it. And it's like you can look at what the actual reasoning is, because the CEOs and executives went to school with the people in Congress, and they donate to the campaigns, and they say, let me do this thing, buddy of mine that was in the same sorority or whatever they're called when it's for guys, right? And like that's it. That's all. It's just that. And they said it's okay. Here you go. You can do it, because what do they care? Either way, they get rich off it. It doesn't affect them at all. And that's where we're at now. It's really unfortunate. And that, like, to your point with Walmart, like, when you get hired at Walmart, part of the onboarding is them showing you how to, like, signing up for these benefits. And, like, that's part of their process. It's built into
disgusting.
How they work. Yeah. And, I was just talking to someone yesterday, and she's from the UK. She does HR, and she's like, I went from there to here. And she's like, and she's battling cancer and getting chemotherapy right now. And she's like, and thank God I have a job. Thank God I can afford these co-pays. Thank God I have insurance. She's like, if I didn't, I would be screwed. In the UK, it's all covered. It's no big deal. Like, it's just is a completely different system than it is here. But that's how we operate here. And she said, from the HR point, it's easy, because, like, if you want to change the nature of someone's job, you want to let someone go, you don't have to explain it. You just go, okay, goodbye. That's it. But in the UK, there's a lot more protections in place. Yeah. There's a lot more of that, like, here's what we're thinking, here's what we're going to do. People can say, no, I don't want to do that. They can fight it back. They have a little more power in the workplace, whereas in America, we just don't have anything like that. And I wonder, will it take 2,000 years to get there? Is it just that we're just because we're new? Or?
I'm going to be curious to see how this AI plays out, because I saw a really interesting podcast with Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, and he was talking about like his vision of where this could go for humanity, and how his thought is that it actually like removes the ceiling of like economic opportunity, and also kind of like raises the sea for everyone else. Like,
sure.
I mean, maybe easy for him to say as a tech guy, but I do actually see like the potential of it opening up a new horizon of possibility for humans, like, in terms of like economic new job possibility. There's a lot of. It reminds me a lot of like what we went through with the Dotcom era, when it was just scratching the surface, and all of a sudden like took off across.
Sure.
And with progress in AI right now, we're kind of reached this. You kind of described it as like reached a plateau where you kind of now we've climbed this mountain in a way, and now we've kind of reached this summit where you can look around and just see all this new possibility.
Yeah.
And so, I guess with that context, it feels like it's a good moment of reevaluating so much of our, like social contexts around like employment, all this political stuff, and capitalism.
Oh, yeah.
And like it feels like there could be an interesting moment, but I'm also a little bit jaded, and I also feel like the people who can control it will control it to sustain the status quo.
Oh yeah, because if they can get 90% of the profit, they're going to try and get 90% of the profit. That's just how they're going to work, because they already get 90%, so they're going to try and do that again. And that's just how they work. Like, when you're working in artistry, you'll see contracts that just in the contract, they go, and we have the right to your image, likeness, and who you are in perpetuity in every way forever. And you have to see that part and go, no, because they'll just try it. They're going to try and put that in the contract to see if they can get away with it, see if you notice. And that's where we're at now with technology. Tech companies are going to try and get the lion's share unless you say or do something about it. And you have to, or they'll just get away with it. And it's unfortunate. But highly likely it'll be in some way like that, where it'll be this amazing tool. A lot of people could benefit from it, but not as many of them are going to as those that could. Yeah.
Well,
And
I
it'll
also-
blow up. But
Yeah, and I also feel like there's a fundamental misalignment of in terms of how we educate people and like take care of people, because I feel like if you took the same, I guess, sort of business mindset around like creating value from, you know, digging up something in the ground versus, or like it's all about value creation. And I feel like humanity and like our human ability and our human intellect and our human, like, there's so much untapped potential. Like if you imagine a world, to your point, like utopia mindset, here we go.
yeah.
Imagine a world where like everyone had the same chance to sort of grow, increase their skills, like learn new you know, just build their experience and learn and build their knowledge, you know, and apply that in different ways. Like I feel like we're just missing so much potential by, frankly, like how, like even in the U.S., like I felt like we missed a big innovation opportunity by all the segregation and all of the racism and all the things. It's like if we could just imagine coming together as a more holistic society back then, like where would we be today? It just feels like we could have shed all the sort of baggage that we've been carrying for so long and invested in people, and I don't know, I just feel like we would be in a much better place.
Well, you're
That's
absolutely
my instinct.
right. I think you're absolutely right, because crowdsourcing has always been the key to our success. There's a great quote that I read that I love, which says, "I'm not so interested in the weight and complexity of Einstein's brain as I am concerned, or, you know, I don't care as much about the fact that of Einstein's brain as I am about the fact that someone of equal intelligence, guaranteed, has died on a oil field or on a you know, picking fruit and spent their whole life slaving away.
Yeah.
Somebody equally as smart, guaranteed has done that, and it's because we don't have that equal opportunity for everyone, because we don't have that equal outcome to say, okay, where does that go? Where, you know, let's look for someone and give them the chance to actually turn into something, and they just don't have that right now.
Like how many other breakthroughs might we have discovered at this point?
Guaranteed.
You know, like cancer could have been cured by now.
I say that often. That's exactly it. Yeah, we could have cured it all, if not many of the diseases we have, with crowdsourcing, because someone smart enough to have figured it out would have figured it out if they just had the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
But people don't, because all those opportunities are still being controlled. And this is where, you know, I talked to a friend where I was like, you know, right now we live in the worst possible time because we see the potential. We know, you and I know, people know, if you were to give everyone an opportunity, we would have great success. And we know that to be true, but we also are in a time where society has only gotten to this point. We've only gotten to the point of knowing, but not actually being able to distribute. It hasn't been created. It hasn't been done. We have no plan for it. There's no way to do it. But it's 100% true that we could, if we gave people that opportunity, it would pay back dividends 1,000-fold.
Yeah.
We just don't have it. We haven't done it yet because we're so new. I mean, 2,000 years ago, there were 10,000 people a day slaving away to mine salt underneath, you know, the Roman Empire. Like, that's what they were doing, and it's just not that long ago. We just don't have any structure in place for it yet, but we absolutely need to. I agree. You know, we have to even it out. It'll happen. It's just, when is that going to happen? 100 years, 150 years, 200 years? You and I aren't going to see it. I know that, but we can envision it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully more people will be thinking this way too.
Yeah, and they will,
You know?
and they will. They just do. Like, that's the nature of humans. We get there, we think about it, but it just takes so long to put any of it in place.
Well, and it also goes back a little bit to like the connected point about if like folks who are struggling, like from there was a hierarchy of needs perspective,
Mm-hmm.
like if I can't even put food on my table or take care of my family, I don't have a house, a roof over my head, like I can't worry about other people's problems or the connectedness of humanity and all the things that are going to make civilization better. Like,
oh yeah.
so yeah, I mean
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that goes into the news media where they say, well, the reason you don't have food on your table, the reason everything's so much more expensive is because this person has an R or a D in front of their name, and because, you know, these people from another country that's already heavily exploited by us already in the first place are now trying to get away from that exploitation, and they're going to take your job. And it's like, okay, well, there's a system at play. If you just go 1,000 feet back and look at it, you can see where the actual causes of these things are going. But people are living every day not without enough food, without enough money, without enough time.
Yeah, and there are forces at play that are intentionally limiting those ability for people, like the Walmart example we use, but also the like banning books and like trying to tell people, like control people's ability to like see the bigger picture.
Yeah. Or see themselves somewhere else, you know, and trying to confine this viewpoint of this, you know, thing. I have a term for it. It's my personal feeling of Mediterranean death cults, right? So you have Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, Hinduism, like all, you know, these of like you'll get a reward after you die, but you have to live a certain way until then. It's like that's just worshiping the afterlife. But we're here now. We could have this Eden utopia that you're waiting for. We could do it right now.
Yeah.
But we're just not. We're just not doing it, and it's unfortunate. And so that's, you know, theology is definitely a part of it. That comes into play. Governments come into play. You know, people craving power comes into play, and we're just in this knotwork of that, trying to eat, trying to put a roof over our own head.
I also wonder if there is like a bit of like, going back to the evolution mindset and like the science and the facts around evolution, and you know there were different like versions of humanity, like Neanderthal and like other like, you know, and that, you know, again like fought and like survival of the fittest, I guess.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there is actually a bit of that's still happening today, where like there are not to like say, you know, you and I, for example, or other people who are like maybe thinking more future oriented or thinking more holistically are of one mindset or one kind of evolutionary track, and others who are like looking backwards, like the Putins of the world, who are like, I just want to, you know, like create a big war and like take over this country and use my control in this way or whatever, like that are just like kind of again missing the bigger picture, missing opportunity. And maybe it's also about evolution and like DNA or genetic predisposition and more just mindset. And but yeah, I mean I don't know, maybe there's a little bit of that's also still in play, the tension around like where are we going as a species.
Right. I hadn't thought about it, but I do think that like Putin in Putin's era, like I really think he's like one of the last people that's trying to do conquest, that's trying to say, okay, let's expand territory more and take over these things and do these things the way it had been done, because that's how it was done. I mean, England, like the most commonly celebrated holiday, right, is Freedom from England Day. This is around the world. It's on different days of the year, but it's the most commonly celebrated holiday, because that's what they tried to do, create empire and expand and do more. And Spain did it, and France did it, Italy did it, exactly. Colonization, all this stuff, America's done it. And so we have all of this, but it's like, I think Putin's the last of it. We're seeing like this isn't the way we want it to go, and it's part of the full evolutionary track, because all of human evolution is part of it. So this the same way we create art and really good food, you have violence and you have bloodshed and you have control, and you just have all of those things. You have people that invented farming just as much as people that invented a spearhead. It all happened at the same time, and it's just all coming up. But the number one game changer is cooperation, us working together. That's the thing that's always led to success, and it's just gonna happen. What's gonna happen is someone's gonna mess it up. Things are gonna go terrible. Things are gonna go bad, and then a group of people are gonna put it together again.
Yeah, let's hope that your example of like testing and learning and having to make mistakes and fail before we can learn.
Yeah.
I hope like there are a few like tipping point failure modes that we definitely want to avoid.
Yes.
I think frankly I think we're experiencing one right now with climate change.
Yeah, it shouldn't be this warm right now. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, and I mean today obviously like it's a little nicer, but like just generally speaking, like what we're seeing around the world.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it will likely happen. There's going to be a point where several hundred million people are not going to be able to survive because climate change has occurred, and we can't provide the amount of food and the space in the same way that we had. You know, the predictability of weather that made farming so easy, it made it to where America could provide enough food to feed 10 billion people, is going to go away. I mean, I want to say, I think it was like 2019, 2020 or something like that, maybe 2021, it rained so much that they were not able to plant corn in Indiana until 3 months later. That's, I mean, how much food is that? That's, you know, millions of people that didn't have the food they needed, the calories they needed to just survive in the way that they were. And that's going to happen more and more, and it's going to keep happening. You know, in the Middle East, it's getting to the point where it's so hot that humans cannot physically live there anymore. So where are they going to go? That's 8 million people. Where are they going to go to? And that just starts expanding and getting more and more. And so we'll see, you know, we'll see where it goes. We'll see what happens. But I also look back at, like, and I was just talking to someone about how, if you remember, right in the 90s, the hole in the ozone layer that was going to destroy the world, right? And a lot of conspiracy theorists are like, well, what happened to the hole, right? What happened? Wasn't this going to be so bad? Well, what actually happened is that the entire planet collectively got their stuff together and said, we can't let this happen because it's going to destroy us all.
Exactly.
And they put all this stuff into place and did something and fixed it and repaired the hole.
Which is like, it should be like the test case for success. And like,
yeah, we can do it. You're absolutely right. It's an example of, like, and this is why I'm like, I believe it. I was like, I think we can do it. I think we can. We had clear evidence that this was actually happening and truly a threat to all life on Earth, and we figured it out. So I think we can. I believe we can. I know we can. We just gotta, and that's the hard part, because there's no profit in that.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, because I feel like I feel like there is actually a lot of opportunity, like just from a business perspective. And unfortunately, I feel like sometimes that resonates more with people than actually the humanity.
Yeah.
But like the idea of, like, again, like just basics of like value creation, like fixing this big problem. You know, there's an opportunity here too that is like Iceland was a great example of, like, they recently created some technology that extracts carbon from the atmosphere and creates bricks.
Okay.
You know, it's like, that's something we could all do. You know, like, why not start a factory in Chicago that does that, or wherever?
Sure.
You know, so like, I don't know, maybe it's just like the reframing of, like, for people who kind of feel like there isn't an opportunity. It's like, yes, actually there is.
There's stuff out there you can, and you just have to find what it is. And that, even if you can take carbon and make it bricks, that's great, because you can use those to build with, because that's all it is. It's just carbon. It's just the stuff that literally every living thing is made out of.
Yeah, and like if from a farming perspective, right, or like agriculture, like if areas are shrinking, like the actual ability to use to create crops in certain environments anymore, you know, why not try to restore that and try to actually expand? You know, then you can make, again, like the argument is, you know, potentially more opportunity.
Yeah.
But
it's having a great profit. I was reading some research that was saying that if a company were required to pay for all of the environmental damage, to make sure they were doing everything correctly, to do it all correctly, to not cause any damage, not create any extra carbon, have a green footprint, and pay everybody well, there would be no profit. They wouldn't have any left. And that's really it. That goes to the root of it. It's like every point when someone's taking money out, when a group of shareholders is making money, it's because they're not doing something that's leading to this, that's causing this to happen.
Well, and there's always like our individual power too. I think when it's organized a little bit more, it's helpful. I mean, I just saw something recently about something the CEO of Kellogg said about like for poor people, essentially, like, you should have, like, eat cereal for dinner.
Eat cereal for dinner, yeah. Oh gosh,
like that's a good way to save money. And it's like, hold on. That's so tone deaf and like irresponsible and frustrating. And And so now people are organizing and boycotting. They're like, we're not
We're not
done.
buying
So
all
like,
that
there's a little
stuff.
bit of that like push-pull that I think we still have some power to
Yeah.
influence.
Oh yeah.
You know?
If the world were to go on strike, if the United States people were to just go on strike for 2 days, we would get everything we wanted. You just have to get people to do it, to go on strike, because the amount of money generated in the U.S. is billions a day. So it just would it would collapse all of those things where they would have to give us the stuff we want. I think we'll get there.
Yeah,
one way
well, I'm
or the other.
optimistic too. Thanks for the great conversation.
Yeah,
Good
this
to,
was a lot of fun. Yeah,
good
have a
to,
great trip and
think about the bigger picture every once in a while.
yeah, this was nice.
Yeah,
This was a lot of
thank
fun.
you.
Have a good
Have a
one.
good one.